Good morning, friends. We are talking about cloud computing in the e-government space, and I'm reminded of what one of the persons in the government sector said some time ago. He said, with great difficulty, in the government sector, we have now realized what computing is all about. So we understand computing, we understand computers and how they work, etc. It's when you add the word cloud before that things get very cloudy. So, so we're not really able to understand what cloud computing is and how it applies to the government sector. And I quite reciprocate what Mr. Meena mentioned about a lot of government departments being at a very early stage in their automation processes. And here are all IT experts coming and saying that this is a technology, cloud computing is the way to go. And very often it does become a challenge in a lot of projects to start communicating a fuzzy thing like cloud computing. And people say, what is this cloud computing? Let's understand about, let's get our basic things going right. But anyway, in this presentation, we will talk a little bit about cloud computing, but more than that, I want to talk of one of the very major elements of cloud computing, which is software as a service. I don't want to go into this concept of cloud computing. We already covered that. We all understand what cloud computing is all about. But if you look at IT development, and how software has been coming about and making major changes, I look at it as three phases in three stages in the IT development processes in the entire IT industry. It's not just about government, it's private sector and everywhere. About 25-30 years ago, when computerization was coming in, the model at that time was a bespoke model. You write a software for specific needs, whether it was for payroll or financial accounting or whatever it is. People would say that I'll give you my specification, my requirements are very different, and teams of people would start doing system design, a study, and come out with the software and start developing the software for that specific need. There was a long lead time. Investments were all made upfront in hardware, in software, in development, and the results of all this automation would come later on, if at all, because very often people realize that all this software which has been developed, the person who gave the specifications did not think of what all things will evolve, and by the time the software was ready to be implemented, a lot of things had changed. The phase 2 of IT development moved into COTS, which is commercially available off-the-shelf software. Right? People started saying this model of developing bespoke software every time doing it is not really the right way. Can we start using ready-made software packages? And of course, you still invest in hardware and you buy the software package, but you can see that the software has already worked at dozens of places, if not hundreds of places, and therefore chances of success are far more. And the value which you get from this development still comes a bit later. Chances of success are much higher, and that has been a model which has been working fairly well in a large number of standard applications. Increasingly, the world is moving towards software as a service. Why do I need to invest in my own hardware, in my own software, in my own back-end processes of managing all these activities? Can I just use it as software as a service? There is negligible investment upfront. I just start using a software which is already developed, which is working. I just start using it and I pay for the transaction. For just whatever service I'm going, I pay for that and I realize my value. I pay for the transactions which are being realized, and therefore the value which you are getting out of this automation is what you are paying for, rather than a lot of investments in hardware, software. As people earlier mentioned, it's very difficult to decide whether you will need X amount of hardware, whether thousands of people will use it or millions of people will use it. In a software as a service, it is somebody else's responsibility to keep on adding hardware and other scalability to make sure that all the transactions are going through. And if you look at a large number of e-governance projects, they are still primarily in the first stage. That is, still a lot of bespoke development is happening. we end up taking some IT company, somebody will start developing a software, designing specifications, and then making sure that the software is achieving what it is supposed to achieve. A lot of investments are made upfront in hardware, in software. A lot of time it takes, and it takes years before the software is ready to be rolled out. And as I said earlier, a large part of that success depends on whether the specifications which are given earlier, whether they thought through everything or not. And therefore, the value which you get out of it is a bit debatable. Do you get the full value? It is not always possible to say. Why is the government departments using bespoke development? One is because the feeling is that we are different. Our things in commercial environment, in private sector, it may work to have a software as a service, but in government departments, it will not work. Is that correct? Is there, at least, can we start using for some of the standard applications? And I look at these three areas which are applied for any organization, whether it is in the government sector or in the private sector. Things like people management, cash management, asset management. These are something which everybody has to take care of. And increasingly in large organizations, they cannot be done manually through Excel spreadsheets and through paper-based systems. So you have to look at some computing, and can you use software as a service for these standard kind of applications? I think there is a need to do that. I come across a lot of situations where people feel that even for these standard things like people management, whether it is HRIS or whether it is asset management, everything has to be developed from scratch. We cannot start using a standard package. And therefore, I think the need has to be realized that can we move some of these solutions to software as a service by leveraging cloud computing services. And I think if you are able to do that, a very major change would be made, because in that situation you will realize that the government departments are actually paying for the value which you get, rather than paying a lot of money for hardware and software and hoping that after 2 or 3 years you will start getting value for that. So the need in a large number of government space is to ensure that your infrastructure and all the kind of applications that you're looking at, the complex applications, can we start using software as a service much more, rather than having your own data centers, which, as we discussed earlier, may only be utilized 15% of the time. So using cloud computing or software as a service, a lot of these issues can get addressed. And I think software, or making a software work effectively, it is not about technology, it is not about the way software has been developed. A lot of software packages, a lot of software applications are about people, processes, and discipline. Right? Howsoever great a software you may have thought through, whatever be the architecture, whatever be the computing, whether it's open source or closed source or whatever, if you don't have the right people, the right processes, and the discipline to make sure that things are being done the way they are supposed to be done, a lot of applications will not achieve the desired results. And we have seen a large number of situations of that as we get into some basic computerization in, say, police departments or PDS and other things, that it is the people, processes, and the discipline which very often is the reason why the full value is not getting realized. And if you start using software as a service in some of these areas, you are ensuring that government departments start realizing the people, process, and discipline aspects, seeing that this IT applications can make a difference, and therefore once that realization comes in, once that confidence comes in, that yes, we can use IT in a very effective manner, then one can go after far more complex integrated solutions rather than from day one. If you take any organization, if you start implementing a complex ERP like SAP or whatever, as a first level of computerization, it is bound to be a failure. ERP, we have seen even in the best and the most mature of organizations, takes years to implement and very often 50% of the time is not a success. It doesn't achieve its desired results. And that is for organizations where a lot of their IT processes are quite mature. What about organizations like government departments where it's the first stage of computerization, right? Where everything is being transformed from a manual processes to automation. Is a integrated, complete ERP the right solution? It may not always be. Not that the solution is right or wrong. It is about the people, the processes, and the discipline have not been addressed, have not been internalized in the organization. And that is what leads to a lot of projects not achieving their desired results. And if you start using some of these software as a service, we can start ensuring that these aspects are taken care of before we start moving in to a complex, integrated, everything under one roof kind of a solution. So we have talked about the security aspect, reliability aspect. I don't want to get into these generic aspects of cloud computing, but I just wanted to talk about ensuring that as we start bringing in automation in a lot of government processes, we have to start seeing that we have to start realizing the value of the investment which we are making rather than just buying a lot of hardware and software. And one of the ways it can be done is using software as a service in standard applications. Thank you very much.